This is really hard, but
This is a story called Sickness, which I think you'll agree is
it is frustrating
correct
when
for and appropriate for what's happening here. But I'll get on with it.
sort of tricky
Sonic,
things start.
Shadow, and Silver were returning home after their fight with
How hard did
Eggman.
they suck you in? How close do you have to be for them to
They
suck
were
you in?
within 2 miles of the house.
All you know is
Shadow
just,
stopped.
stay away
Anybody
from them.
want to race the rest of the way? Silver grinned.
You can't
All
stay away
right,
from them because
I'm
they're
game.
everywhere and this
Are
is
you
pretty
Sonic?
bad.
Sonic stopped and shook his head. No, you guys can, but I'm not. Shadow nearly fell over. What? Sonic looked back to Shadow and Silver. For some odd reason, my legs are aching really badly, and it hurts to run. Silver walked up to Sonic. Any idea what you might have done? Sonic shook his head. No clue. I just don't want to be in more pain, okay? Go ahead and race if you want to. Shadow rolled his eyes. Here, take this emerald. That way you can chaos control home if you want to. Sonic grinned. Thanks, Shadow. Tell the others when you get there, okay? Shadow and Silver nodded and took off. Sonic watched them go in agony. He wanted so much to race with them, but he couldn't. Shadow and Silver arrived home in nearly 5 minutes. Shadow had decided to run as slow as Silver. Shadow had won yet again. Silver rolled his eyes and said, "You cheat!" Shadow shook his head. "Do not." Everyone else heard the argument. Rouge, Knuckles, Tails, Amy, Blaze, and Jenna emerged from the house. Knuckles shook his head. "Hey, where's Sonic?" Shadow and Silver walked over and explained. Tails shook his head. "And you let him walk home?" Shadow shrugged. "Hey, he wanted to." Silver nodded. "He did." Amy sighed. "But what if something happens to him?" Shadow looked back on the path they had come. "I say we give him 5 minutes. If he's not here by then, we go look for him." Everybody agreed and waited. Sonic was walking, but slowly. There was just too much pain, but he forced himself on. Sonic slowly made his way down the path. In a while, the house came into view, and Sonic could see figures out front. He smiled. "Worried about me, huh?" But his smile faded as he felt another huge pain in his legs. Sonic shook his head. "I just have to make it to the house." Shadow saw Sonic coming slowly. He sighed. "There he is." Everybody looked up and saw Sonic coming closer. Amy sighed in relief. "At least he's safe." Silver nodded. "Yeah." Although their smiles faded as they watched Sonic collapse. Silver and Shadow ran out to him. Shadow kneeled down instantly and asked Sonic, "You all right?" Sonic was breathing heavily and was a little pale. He tried to get up, but he couldn't. He quietly said, "I can't go anymore." Shadow nodded and lifted Sonic up and put one of Sonic's arms over his shoulder. Silver did the same. They got him back into the house and on a couch as quick as they could. They were worried when they saw Sonic had become even paler. His eyes were not their normal green. Now they were pale green. Shadow lowered his head to look at Sonic. He asked, "Hey, you still with us?" Sonic slowly met Shadow's gaze and blinked slowly. His eyes were half open. Blaze was shocked at Sonic's state. "Guys, I think we should call a doctor. I've never seen him this bad before." Shadow nodded. "Agreed. Something's not right." Silver pulled out his cell phone and called the doctor. He closed his phone and said, "The doc will be here in 20 minutes. Blaze nodded. 20 minutes it is. The doorbell rang, startling everybody, except Sonic, who looked worse than ever. His eyes were now slightly glazed, and he had become paler. Shadow ran to the door, relieved to see the doctor. Oh, thank God. He's gotten worse. The doctor saw the worry in Shadow's eyes and nodded. I'll do everything in my power to help him. That was good enough for Shadow. The doc made his way to the living room, where everyone was gathered. He nodded to them, and they nodded back. He saw Sonic and thought to himself, not even I have seen him this bad. He sat on the couch and lifted Sonic's head. Sonic slowly looked up at the doc and blinked, not really knowing who he was at the moment. The doctor let Sonic's head bow again and sighed. Silver asked, worried, "Can you help him, Dr. Jacques?" The doctor turned to face Silver and the others. "I may, but not even I know what is wrong. I need him to answer some questions, but it doesn't look like he'll answer." Blaze shook her head. "Then he can tap." She lifted Sonic's head and softly told him, "Sonic, we need you to answer some questions, so I need you to tap. Can you do that?" Sonic nodded slowly. Blaze nodded. "Good. Now here's what you do. Tap 1 tap for no, 2 taps for yes, and 3 taps for I don't know. Can you do that?" Sonic tapped twice. Blaze smiled. Dr. Jakes nodded. "Are you pained all over?" Sonic tapped twice. He nodded. "Can you see clearly?" Only 1 tap. He nodded. "Can you move your arms and legs?" Sonic tapped 3 times. Dr. Jacques tried a different approach. "Can you try for me?" Sonic tapped twice. He moved his fingers, then his arms. And then he tried his legs. They wouldn't move. Sonic tried with all the power he had left, but his legs wouldn't move. Dr. Jacques looked at Sonic. "You can't move them, can you?" Sonic tapped once. Amy bit her lip. What could that mean? Sonic's eyes were nearly shut now. He was having trouble staying awake. The doctor saw this and took notes. Darkness was closing in around Sonic's view. Then, out of nowhere, a voice spoke to him. "Stay awake, my son. You must finish the questions." Sonic slightly shook his head, which helped a little bit. The doctor finished writing and started packing up. "Well, I can tell you right now is that Sonic is very ill and needs rest. Do not allow him to go anywhere. Wake him up 3 times a day and get him to eat. It may be a while before I get the results for his illness, so just take care of him until then." Blaze nodded and watched the doctor leave. Sonic sat there, still not knowing who he had just seen. He felt weaker and weaker by the minute. However, above the pain, Sonic felt sleep overcoming him. Blaze sat down nearby. "That's it, Sonic. Go to sleep." Sonic's eyes closed farther. Before he fell asleep, he heard Shadow say, "Well, I guess that means we have to hope he doesn't get worse." Then everything went black. Sonic awoke to the sound of the doorbell. He blinked several times and looked over at the door. It seemed so far away. Shadow walked past Sonic to the door. He opened it and was surprised. "Hey, Doc, did you already get the results back?" The doctor simply sighed. "We need to have a talk." Shadow didn't like the tone in his voice and quickly went to get the others. Dr. Jacques made his way to the couch Sonic was on and pulled up a chair. It pained him to see the sad state Sonic was in. He sighed. "You look so miserable." Sonic looked at him strangely. Shadow came back out and sat down, and the others soon followed. Blaze sat on the couch with Sonic. She was startled when something touched her hand, and she looked down. Sonic's hand had crept over to hold her hand. Sonic smiled, Blaze smiled back, and took his hand. Then she turned her attention toward the doc. He sighed. Yesterday, I had the information sent out. However, it came back with a note saying, "This is an unknown virus. Take extreme caution." His words hung in the air. Silver shook his head. So Sonic has an unknown virus in his body? The doc slowly nodded. Yes, I'm afraid so. And unfortunately, we can do nothing for him. Blaze's eyes were tearing up. Sonic is strong. I know he'll pull through this. Sonic squeezed Blaze's hand and smiled. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Sonic said in a quiet, horsey voice, "I'll do my best." Blaze smiled as more tears escaped. The doctor smiled. It may even be a miracle that you're even talking. Sonic nodded and fell back asleep. Sonic was awakened again, but this time Blaze was waking him up. He slowly opened his eyes and smiled. He smelled food and looked at the soup in Blaze's hand. She dragged a small table over and helped Sonic into a sitting position. She picked up the soup again and stirred it. It's chicken soup, and it should make you feel a little better. Sonic nodded. He finished the flicky soup quickly. He was ready to eat. Blaze gave him the last spoonful and sighed. Want any more? Sonic shook his head. He didn't have much of an appetite ever since he got sick. She smiled. Okay. Get some more sleep. You need it. Sonic nodded and lowered himself into a sleeping position. But he found that he couldn't sleep. Something didn't feel right. He rolled on his side, but then his head started to hurt. He lied on his back, but found he felt no better. Something was wrong, and he needed to get to the others. He sat up, only to have the pain increase. Then he remembered something. His legs wouldn't work. He sighed and lied back down. There was a glass cup on the table beside Sonic. He picked it up and threw it in the direction where the TV was. It shattered, just what he wanted. Blaze shot up. Did you hear that? Shadow nodded. Think Sonic needs something? Blaze nodded. I think so. She and the others stood up and walked out in the main room. The glass was just at the doorway. Blaze stepped over the glass and ran over to the couch Sonic was on. He was worse than before. His eyes were almost completely shut, and he was even paler than before. Blaze lifted his head. Sonic, Sonic, Sonic looked at her slowly. He looked slightly dazed. Blaze felt a lump in her throat. She quickly told Shadow, "Call Dr. Chakes. He getting worse." Shadow nodded and pulled his phone out. The doctor picked up. "Hello?" Shadow was relieved to hear his voice. "Doctor, it's Sonic. He's gotten worse." That was all he needed to hear. "I'll be over as soon as I can." Shadow sighed and hung up. Blaze looked at him. "Well?" Shadow sighed. "He said he'd be here as fast as he could." Blaze looked back at Sonic. She let a few tears escape. Sonic said in his mind, "Don't cry, Blaze. Don't cry." He reached for her hand and squeezed it. She looked at him and hugged him. "You're always there for me." About 5 minutes later, the doctor arrived. He came in as soon as the door opened. He checked Sonic's temperature. 107. Sonic started sweating a little. Then the doctor told Sonic, We need to find out if you can stand." Sonic nodded slowly and sat up. All of a sudden, his head might explode. Sonic quickly put his hands on his head. Everything started spinning. He shook his head to clear his vision, but it just got worse. Sonic groaned. Dr. Chakes got worried. "Sonic, are you all right?" Sonic shook his head. Nothing's clear." The doctor got a small flashlight out and told Sonic, "Follow the light with your eyes." Sonic nodded and tried the best he could to follow the dim light. The doctor stopped. "Can you follow it, Sonic?" Sonic shook his head. It's too blurry. Blaze shook her head. Sonic, did it get worse when you sat up? Sonic slowly nodded. The doctor sighed. Well, this will help to get a diagnosis. Hopefully, they come up with something. This is getting too bad. Blaze nodded. Agreed he needs some kind of help. The doctor nodded, and then he left to go back home. Blaze sighed as she helped Sonic to a resting position. How are we supposed to help you if we don't know what's wrong with you? Sonic shrugged. Tails rubbed his head. It just doesn't make sense. He didn't show any signs of being ill before yesterday. But why? Knuckles shrugged. Well, sometimes they don't show any signs, it just hits them. Tails sighed. Guess you're right. But still, why Sonic? Silver laughed. Something bad always happens to Sonic. Blaze smiled. Always seems that way, huh? Shadow nodded. I'm just glad I'm not Sonic. Sonic shook his fist and Shadow and smiled. Amy laughed. I think that meant watch it. Sonic rolled his eyes and started to fall asleep. Blaze smiled and stood up to go back to the TV. The others followed her to leave Sonic in peace. Sonic was dreaming about running again, feeling the wind, seeing the sights, and even racing with animals. Running, never stopping. But why is his chest hurting? He's gasping for air. Sonic stops and gasps hard, but why? Sonic, wake up! Sonic, wake up! Sonic opens his eyes. He really is gasping for air. Blaze was sitting next to Sonic with a worried expression. Sonic sat up and held his chest. Everything hurt. His head, his chest, and his legs. Everyone else was standing around Sonic, all worried about him. Sonic was near, white now, and was desperately trying to breathe. Blaze finally asked, "Should we call the doc?" Sonic nodded vigorously. Blaze nodded, "Shadow." He nodded and dialed the number. The doctor was over yet again to help Sonic. Sonic was still gasping. He just couldn't seem to catch his breath. Dr. Jacques told Sonic in a calm voice, "Sonic, just keep breathing. Just try to slow it down, though." Sonic nodded slowly, but still he couldn't stop gasping. His chest felt like it might explode. Sonic tightly closed his eyes. The pain in his chest was so heavy. Jacques sighed. His condition is enough to put him in a hospital. Without warning, Sonic passed out. Dr. Jacques shook his head. Now How needs to go to a hospital. Blaze reluctantly agreed. In just a half hour, they were in the hospital. Dr. Jacques was trying to get a room for Sonic. Unfortunately, when they had arrived, there were no rooms open. Blaze watched Dr. Jacques and the secretary argue. Shadow felt movement between him and Blaze. He looked down to see that Sonic was finally waking up. Blaze looked down and smiled. Well, at least he's waking up. Sonic opened his and blinked a few times. Blaze helped him sit up. Hospital, that startled him. He gave her a look that told her what? Blaze nodded. You passed out while talking about if you needed to come here or not. I guess you answered that for us. Sonic was still confused. Dr. Jacques came over and said, "Ah, you're awake, I see." Sonic nodded. Dr. Jacques sighed. Well, the secretary gave away the last room to a patient who showed your symptoms. There's a spare bed in that room, and I think we should get you up there. Sonic nodded. Dr. Jacques opened the door. There on the bed was a green fox. He had hazel eyes, one tail, and an orange necklace on. He looked up slowly. He looked just as bad as Sonic. The doc read some on the paper the fox had written. He looked up to the fox. "Trevor, is it?" The fox nodded. He spoke in a horsey voice. "Yeah, can you help me, Doc?" Jacques shrugged. "That I'm not sure of yet, but I'd like you to meet Sonic. He has the same illness as you do." Sonic went over and sat with Trevor. Jacques sighed. Now I need to find out some things. Do either of you know what the cause may be? Both of them shook their heads. Jackass nodded. Okay. How long have you been feeling sick for in advance? How many days? Trevor and Sonic held up 3 fingers. Jackass turned around to Shadow and Silver. Silver tapped his head. It's been like, 4 days since he's been sick, Shadow sighed. Now, where were we 3 days before that? Silver snapped. I think we were fighting Eggman. Shadow nodded. Yeah, we were. Jackass perked, so maybe Eggman has something to do with this all. Shadow and Silver nodded. Shadow sighed. I always had a thought that Eggman did this, Silver nodded. As did I. I was just too stupid to speak up. Amy hugged Silver. You know that's not true. Shadow held Rouge. It was our faults we didn't speak up. Sorry, Sonic. Sonic shook his head and stood up. He spoke as clearly as he could. No, it was my fault. I knew he had hit me with something. I didn't speak up, though. Shadow and Silver looked up, confused. Sonic nodded. I thought it was something I could shake. Sonic sighed and turned around. And now I may die for that mistake. Blaze turned him around and kissed him. No, you won't. You're strong. Sonic hugged her. Let's hope. Knuckles pounded his fists together. So you say Eggman has to do with this? Trevor nodded. Shadow grinned. I've been wanting to beat him for a while. Shall we then? Silver and Knuckles nodded. Shadow turned back before he exited. Don't worry, we'll find a cure. Sonic slowly nodded and watched Shadow leave. Good luck, he whispered. At Eggman's base, a large door blocked the 3 from entering. Silver sighed. So how do we get past this one? Knuckles punched it, but it didn't budge. Shadow did Chaos Spear, but still nothing happened. Silver picked up a nearby boulder and chucked it at the door, and it broke down. Knuckles glared at Silver. I hate you and your powers. Silver rolled his eyes. Don't be jealous. Shadow laughed. You do realize that you did that like a girl, Silver pouted. Did not. Knuckles kept walking. Don't throw a hissy fit, Silver. Silver rolled his eyes and continued walking. Shadow jumped a bit when his phone rang. Hello? Blaze sounded worried. You guys need to find it a cure soon. These 2 are getting worse. Shadow sighed. All right, we'll find it as soon as we can, all right? Blaze felt a lump in her throat. Okay, just hurry, please. Shadow nodded and hung up. All right, you 2. Let's get that cure. Back at the hospital, both Trevor and Sonic were nearly suffocating. Trevor managed to slow his breathing a bit, but Sonic couldn't. After some time, Trevor had started breathing normally again. Dr. Jackass stood next to Sonic in disbelief. It had been only 10 minutes after they had arrived they started gasping. Sonic was still gasping like crazy. Everyone was trying to help Sonic. Even Dr. Jackass tried him on oxygen, but nothing worked. Darn it. He should have been breathing normally by now. Sonic's body finally couldn't take the pressure and passed out. Shadow, Silver, and Knuckles had gotten to Eggman now, waiting for their moment to speak. Shadow sighed. Hey, Fatty, Eggman gasped. Shadow, old friend, what brings you here? Silver growled lowly. We're here to find out what this little sickness is you're giving people. Eggman stood up. Well, it's a special sickness caused from juice from a coconut and Chaos Emerald dust. Knuckles glared at him. And where did you get the dust? Eggman laughed. Why, from your beloved Chaos Emeralds, of course. I shot a sleeping dart in your neck and scraped some pieces of just for my experiment with Trevor and Sonic. Silver growled again. And why choose them? Eggman sighed. Well, for one, they're my main worries, and for two, neither of them have been sick before. Shadow raised his eyebrows. And what does that have to do with anything? Eggman grinned. It has a lot to do with the experiment's failure or success. Since they have never been sick, their immune system is weaker because it never really was needed. So because of that, the experiment will most likely succeed on both of them. Shadow glared at the fat man. Is there a cure? Eggman sighed. You would want to know that, wouldn't you? Well, there is one. But who said I have to tell you twerps? Knuckles pounded his fists together. Because if you don't, we'll beat it out of you. Eggman's mouth dropped open. All right, all right. The cure is not easy to make. You need a fake Chaos Emerald and rattlesnake venom. You mix them together and make the two drink it. Within 4 days, they'll be back to normal. Silver was confused. How are they going to drink a Chaos Emerald? Eggman shook his head. You dimwit. Since you're putting it in venom, it dissolves. Knuckles was worried about the two. All right, let's go. Shadow and Silver nodded and followed him out. Little to their knowledge, Eggman had lied. Shadow, Silver, and Knuckles stood outside Eggman's base. Silver sighed. How can we trust him? It just seems like he lied. Knuckles sighed as well. I guess based on our situation, we have to trust him. Shadow kicked a rock in frustration. Well, if he lied, then I say we beat him until he finally tells the truth. Knuckles and Silver nodded. Knuckles rubbed his head. So how do we get rattlesnake venom? Shadow slapped his forehead. You idiot! You kill a rattler and get his venom. That's simple. Silver shuddered and smiled uneasily. Kill it? Shadow nodded. Yep, then the fake Chaos Emerald. Knuckles waved it off. We have plenty of those. Silver sighed. So who's getting what? Shadow shook his head. Since you're being a chicken, you get the emerald while Knuckles and I handle the rattler. Silver sighed in relief. Okay, shall we go? Shadow shook his head again. Go ahead, you big chicken. Silver glared at Shadow as he walked off. Knuckles sighed. Now to find that rattler. When Sonic had passed out for the second time, he had stopped breathing completely. Dr. Jacques quickly put him on oxygen. He sighed. That was too close for comfort. Blaze and the others agreed. Jacques shook his head. What I don't understand is why does Sonic continually gasp and Trevor doesn't? Trevor shook his head. Do you think that maybe I got a lesser dose than he did? Jacques nodded. Perhaps, but right now we need him to wake up. Everyone in the room looked at Sonic, hoping and praying he would arouse soon. Knuckles sighed. Okay, let's try this again. Shadow huffed. Fine. It's only the third time. Knuckles rolled his eyes and stepped out to attract the rattler. Shadow, meanwhile, was loading his gun to shoot it. It got within biting distance to Knuckles, hissing the whole time. Shoot it already, Shadow. Knuckles closed his eyes, waiting for the bite, but he heard a gunshot and snapped his eyes open. The rattler lay there, mouth and eyes open. Shadow chuckled. Did you honestly think I would let it bite you? Knuckles glared at Shadow. Knowing you for so long, you actually might. Shadow laughed to himself as he took out a syringe and filled the bottle with the venom. Shadow sighed. Now we wait for the chicken. Knuckles laughed. Who are you calling a chicken? Shadow looked at Silver. Oh great, Oh look, the great chicken has returned. Silver rolled his eyes. Yeah. Now let's get to Trevor and Sonic. Shadow and Knuckles nodded. Everyone sat quietly at the hospital, even Trevor. He looked at Jenna. She looked back, then turned away. Trevor was sure he had seen her somewhere before, but where? Sonic was still unconscious on the bed, slowly breathing in the oxygen. Blaze had fallen asleep on the couch across from Sonic. Tails had brought his laptop to type in entries about the sickness. He had searched the web and found out it was called agony destruction. Basically, it hurt your lungs so much it eventually destroyed them. It also said that if somebody got too much, it could kill them in 2 weeks. Tails didn't like one thing about this homemade sickness. He prayed in his mind that Knuckles, Silver, and Shadow returned quickly. Shadow carefully carried the liquid as he entered the hospital. Knuckles and Silver behind him to make sure nobody pushed him. They walked to Sonic and Trevor's room and opened the door. Everyone jumped up when they entered. Silver got 2 cups and held them still so Shadow could pour.
No, I said jump.
Sonic's
Because
blinked a few times to remember where he was. He pulled off the oxygen face mask.
I mean, sure, we know it.
"What's going on?" he asked quietly. Jaquez sighed and held the cup up to Sonic. "Drink," was all he said. Sonic sniffed the liquid, then drank the glass of strange yellow goop. He stuck out his tongue. Excuse me. He stuck out his tongue. "Bleck," Trevor laughed. Sonic laughed with the others, grateful he could laugh again. She stood there looking at the sad state before her. She sighs and sits down with a sigh. The early morning fog hangs in the air. To Graveyard is a very lonesome place. The 2 gravestones before her read, "Trevor Mikey's, a devoted fighter, beloved friend, loved boyfriend. We'll miss you, Trev. Rest in peace." Blaze sighs. "Why did you have to leave Jenna behind, Trevor?" A tear rolls down her cheek as she lays flowers on his grave. She holds another bundle of flowers in her lap. Sonic Hedgehog. Devoted fighter, everyone's hero. Loyal boyfriend. Keep on fighting for us, bud. Rest in peace. Blaze wipes tears away and sets the flowers on his grave. She bites her lip, trying not to burst out crying. She feels a hand on her shoulder and turns to find everyone there. Knuckles, Tails, Amy, Shadow, Silver, Jenna, Dr. Jaquez, Rouge, Omega, Iblis, Dr. Eggman, everyone. She sighs. "I can't believe it's been a year already." Knuckles removes his hand from her shoulder and sighs. Jenna comes forward and sits beside Blaze. "We'll see them again in heaven." Blaze looks at Jenna and nods.